Projects are now available in Claude Cowork. Whether you've already been using projects in chat, or even if you've never used them before, this is an update that I think is worth knowing about. The best thing is you can move your existing projects over into Cowork, but that transfer doesn't happen exactly how you'd expect it to. So let's take a look at exactly how it does work and why I think Cowork is where you'll want your projects to live. Now, one quick note, Cowork is only available to paid subscriptions starting at that $20 a month level. All right, let's go take a look. So here in Claude Chat, I've got my projects. I've got this running shoe project. It's nothing fancy. It's just a place where I've been keeping track of the shoes that I like and I don't like so that in the future, I don't accidentally buy the wrong shoes again. So I asked it if it could create kind of a table for me, a file for me, so I could just at a glance see the shoes that I've mentioned in the past. So if you've used projects before, you know it's really good at creating these documents, but if you ask it to save it into your project, it tells you need to copy and paste it or download it. But just a tip, there is a quick add to project button here. So as soon as you hit that and then go back out to your main project, you can see it down here in your files. All right, so I've got this nice running shoe project. I've got one file in it, and it's got some memories about the conversations we've had. So let's bring this project over to Cowork. All right, and we're gonna go over here to projects, and we're gonna say we wanna create a new project, but we want to import a project. And to search, you just click into the box. So I'm gonna bring my running shoes project over, and I do want to give it a location on my laptop. So I've already created on my laptop a Claude folder with a projects subdirectory in it. I've just decided I want a central place to keep all of my Claude projects together. And I'm gonna go ahead and use the running shoes directory. Create the project, and you can see right now the running shoes directory is empty. Over here are all the project settings, and you can always come back and change these later. If you're not familiar with how projects work, that's an entire video unto itself. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in seeing that one in the future. It does note that it brought this project over from chat, so you do know at least where the origin of some of this information was. So one of the interesting things to note is it did bring the project over from chat, but it didn't seem to bring that project file over, or at least not in a place where we can see it. But if I ask it, what are my favorite running shoes? Thinks for a minute, and you can see it definitely has that information. It just doesn't have that file, at least in a format that we can see. So I did ask Claude about this earlier, and it said that it brings files over from your old projects into the context, into the memory of the new project, but it doesn't bring the files in that format over to this project. But I think I do actually want to keep that file over here. Can you recreate that table of running shoes for me in a file for this project? And the really nice thing is you can see not only did it go ahead and recreate that file for us, it also saved it directly into our folder. But here's something that's really important and you need to know. This project inside of Cowork and the old project inside of Chat are two completely separate projects. They don't sync up going forward. So you are going to have to decide which one you want to be the project of record, unless you want to maintain two separate projects with the same name. Now, why would you want the project to live here in Cowork instead of just in Chat? There's two reasons. The first reason is the files inside of this project, they don't just live inside of the project, they actually live on your hard drive. So anytime you want to access them, you can actually see them either from your project or externally, just in your Finder, the way you normally would look for information. And when you add information to this project, it will update your local file, not just the project. So for example, if I want to give it information about, let's say my favorite running socks as well, it'll store that information for me too. Hey, I'd like to create like another file, maybe a subfolder in the running shoes directory about my favorite running socks. I really like the Ingenuity, the like thick trail running socks. And there it is. So you can see I've got my running shoe notes, I've got my running sock notes. And if I just want to grab those notes real quickly, I can always just come into my hard drive and find that file. So while it might seem a little bit silly that I want to access data about my running socks on my laptop, here's the thing. If I ever want to use a different AI tool, All my data is just sitting there in a directory, and I can just point a different tool at that directory and have access to all of my data. It's not locked inside of a proprietary project somewhere waiting for me to try to figure out how to extract it to move contexts. I can just point a different tool at my documentation and get started immediately. All right, so I said there was 2 reasons you might want your projects to live inside of Cowork. The second reason is their new tool called Dispatch. I've done a separate video about that. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to know more. But basically, it's the way to send tasks to your Claude Cowork sessions, including projects, from your phone. You can remotely access your data inside your Cowork session or ask it to do something for you. All right, so here's what that looks like. Over here on my phone, I am going to send in a message just saying, what did I think about the Brooks running shoes? Now, this might take a minute, and I have noticed that occasionally in the past, it works a little bit better if you can mention the project by name. So I might really want to say something like, look in my running shoes project and tell me what I thought about the Brooks running shoes. That can help it get the information a little bit faster. But if you just leave it open-ended, I have seen that it will search through all of its sessions and then try again inside of projects. All right, so there it is, and I got the answer from my phone while I'm away from my computer. But it's not just good for data retrieval, you can also give it tasks while you're away from your desk. So if you're out shopping and you see a new pair of shoes that you think looks interesting, there's these Earth Runner sandals that I keep hearing about. Can you add those to just make a note that I want to do some research on those in the future? In fact, hey, can you research those and just make a file so I can come back and look at it later? Put it in my running shoes project, please. And just like that, you've asked your project to go do some work for you. You're not even at your computer. You can just come back to it later and see what it has to say. And so that's the kind of feature that everybody's been talking about that takes this from just being another chat session to being really a remote assistant for you. You can keep your project working for you even when you're away from your computer. So that's projects in Cowork. You get local file access so your data lives on your computer. You get remote access so you can access that data even if you're not at your computer. The transfer of projects from chat over into Cowork isn't perfect. I do wish that the files would transfer a little bit more cleanly. But to me, that one-time setup cost is totally worth it because I feel like the project in Cowork that you end up with is just a lot more robust and accessible. And honestly, it's a lot more transferable in the future should the need arise. So if you haven't tried Cowork yet, I would say this is just another reason to give it a shot. All right, that's it for today. If you liked this video, think about hitting that like button and maybe subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.